County Board of Education regular scheduled meeting, April 7th, 2025. Thank you all for being here. At this time, I'm going to ask for an invocation from Mr. Flowers.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you once again for this day. We thank you for all the blessings in life. We ask you to just guide us and direct us as we conduct the business of the Marlboro County School District. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. Now please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. The notification. Need a motion to call the meeting order.
So move, Mr. Chair.
Have a motion to call the meeting order. I have a second.
I second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, let it be known, raising your right hand. Meeting is now called to order. Okay. Notification to the media has went out. Now I need approval of the agenda.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the agenda as printed.
Motion to approve the agenda as printed. Do I have a second?
I second it.
Any discussion? Yes and any? All in favor, let them know by raising your right hand. The agenda has been approved. The public session part of our program is points of celebration. Character education, student of the month.
Good evening, Board Chair Coachman, board members, and Dr. Tiller. I am incredibly proud to recognize Caroline Medlin as our March Character Education student, exemplifying the character education pillar of honesty. Caroline consistently demonstrates integrity in every aspect of her life. She is a student who can always be counted on to make the right choices, even when no one is watching. Her actions reflect a commitment to honesty, responsibility, and ethical behavior, making her a role model for her peers and a student her teachers deeply admire. Caroline's strong moral character is evident in her daily interactions, and her honesty shines through in both her actions and her words. She is a student her teachers and peers can always count on to speak the truth, uphold strong moral values, and set an example for fairness. Whether she is completing her assignments, offering a helping hand, or making thoughtful choices, Caroline's character remains steadfast. I have the distinct pleasure of working with Caroline during small group time, and she has the unique ability to quietly lead by example through her kindness, humility, and grace. Despite her intense drive for academic success, Caroline clearly understands the importance of staying grounded. More importantly, she knows that character counts far more than perfection. One shining example of Caroline's integrity occurred during her WIN reading time with Ms. Barfield. After completing progress monitoring, the group was allowed to access educational games. Caroline immediately suggested iReady learning games to her peers. When another student accessed a non-educational game based on a misunderstanding, Caroline respectfully clarified that only learning games were permitted. Her actions, though seemingly small, highlight the kind of honesty and maturity that sets her apart as a leader. Caroline understands that choices rooted in integrity lead to big rewards in life. Her presence uplifts her classroom, and her honesty fosters a culture of trust and excellence. We are honored to celebrate Caroline as our March Student of the Month. Congratulations, you truly embody what it means to lead with honesty. At this time, I would like to invite Caroline and her family to come forward, and let's greet her with a round of applause.
Greetings, Board Chair, Board members, Dr. Tiller. On behalf of my principal, Mr. Lawrence Deese, and my co-partner, Ms. Tonette Jones, my name is Quinn McCollum, and I'd like to recognize our Character Education Student of the Month, Shamira G. I am delighted to nominate Ms. G for Student of the Month, highlighting her remarkable qualities of honesty and integrity. Throughout the school year, Shamira has consistently exemplified these traits, making her a role model for her peers. Shamira's honesty shines in every aspect of her school life. She approaches her work and interactions with a genuine sense of urgency and transparency. Whether she's participating in classroom discussions or working on group projects, Shamira is always truthful in her contributions, ensuring that her classmates can rely on her integrity. A noteworthy example of her integrity occurred during a recent group assignment. When discussing ideas, Shamira noticed that one of her peers was struggling to express their thoughts. Instead of dismissing their contributions, she encouraged them to share their ideas openly and gave honest feedback. This not only helped the group succeed, but also created a supportive atmosphere where everyone felt valued. Beyond academics, Shamira is known for her strong moral compass. She never hesitates to stand up for what is right, even when it's challenging. Her peers trust her judgment and feel confident about approaching her with their concerns, knowing she will listen and respond honestly and intently. Shamira also demonstrates her integrity in her daily actions. She takes responsibility for her work and is always willing to admit when she makes a mistake. The level of accountability inspires her classmates to do the same, fostering a culture of honesty within our classroom. In summary, Ms. G is an exemplary candidate for Student of the Month. Her unwavering commitment to honesty and integrity not only enriches her own learning experience, but also positively impacts her peers. I wholeheartedly support her nomination and believe she truly embodies the values we celebrate. And I'd like to recognize right now Shamira G and her family.
Okay, congratulations. We now have the Cleanliness Award. School Cleanliness Award. We got the championship this week, man.
Good evening.
How you doing, Mr. McNeil?
It gives me great pleasure this afternoon to come up and present the Cleanliness Award for this month. This month is Bennettsville Primary School. They wanted to be sure to let all the principals know they better get the game up because the floors are shining and you can see yourself. Bennettsville Primary School.
All right.
She's going to accept the pictures and the award on behalf of her staff, and she'll get it back.
All right.
All right.
Man, I told y'all the high school in my district.
Y'all's mine. I'll see those.
$300. That's a flat 300. This year, the wrong
Right.
game tomorrow.
Move right along. Executive session, we have personal matters, recommendation for grievance A, and legal matters. We have a motion to go into executive session to discuss those items.
Mr. Chair, I move that we go into executive session, discuss personnel matters, recommendations, grievance, and other legal matters.
We have a motion and a second.
I second.
We have a second. Any discussion? Any? All in favor, let me know. Raise your right hand. Board of Education is now in executive session. No recommendations at this time. Yeah, can I get approval of the minutes from the March 3rd, 2025 regular scheduled meeting?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve March 3rd regular scheduled meeting and March 24th special call meeting.
Okay. Motion to approve March 3rd regular scheduled meeting and March 24th special call meeting. All in favor? Do I have a second first? I'm sorry.
I second.
All right. Any discussion? The other than any, all in favor, let me know by raising your right hand. Minutes are approved. Okay. Public comments. We don't have any public comments at this time. No public comments. Okay. Okay. We have policies. First reading of the policies. Policy IA through policy IHAL. We got them in our package. We was able to look over them. This is the first reading, and can I have a motion on it?
Mr. Coachman, I do move that we approve the first reading of policy IA, IB, IC, IE, IG, IHA, IHAA, IHAB, IHAC, IHAD, IHAF, IHAH, IHAJ, IHAK, and IHAL for first reading.
Do I have a second?
I second it.
Any discussion?
Is this?
Galloway?
Yes. I had a few questions about a few of them. So with IA, the philosophy of education, in the district is committed to meeting the needs of all students. And so after reading it, I'm not sure, but I just made this note, if we could add this, if this is optional, because the last bullet says prepare for life in a world of rapid and unforeseeable demands. It could possibly fall in that, but I just made a note to prepare exceptional students for successful transition into the workforce by developing practical job readiness skills, self-advocacy, and workplace behaviors tailored to their individual strengths and needs. I do know we have a partnership with vocational rehab, but I was just curious about what things we're doing inside of the classroom.
Not about it?
Good afternoon. With the board policies go to the School Boards Association, and they make the suggestions and corrections and send them back to us as they should be.
Okay.
So what we present before you all, it has already been approved by the School Boards Association as right and what should be in our board policy.
So with first reading, the district can't tailor it to our district goals?
We would have to send it back to the School Boards Association and see if it's acceptable.
Okay. Okay.
So
That's one thing I would, if that was possible.
Galloway, are you asking about our kids that are exceptional?
EC kids, yes. Or disabled.
Are you asking what's for them?
Yes.
We have transition plans.
Okay.
Every child has to have a transition plan from high school to work or to independent living. Each child has a plan based on their needs.
Gotcha.
Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't hear that part of it.
Okay.
I only heard
So
to add stuff.
that covers that policy for you, Mr. Galloway?
Yes.
On the legal requirements, that's indicator 13.
Mm-hmm.
And so we do have plans in place for our students. We have to.
Okay. What's the other one, Ms. Galloway?
I had a question for clarification for IE. It says option 1 and option 2,
What policy again?
IE,
IE.
All right.
organization of instruction.
Okay.
So what I'm questioning is, are we choosing option 1 or option 2, or these are just things presented for us to discuss, or these are options for the district to select, to follow?
We have chosen, the board has chosen the option, which is I have to read it again. I haven't looked at it since we put it in here.
These are the updates to the one that we already had previously, right?
Correct. All of these updates were made in 21, and it's my understanding that they were brought before the board for first reading, but they never came back, and they were approved for first reading, but they never came back for second reading. So because they never came back for second reading, we have to start all over again.
The matter was updating the policies for us, and we didn't get past the first reading.
And because it's been since 21, we have to start the process all over again.
So our board has done the first reading, and you saying they selected one of the options already?
I wasn't here, so I'm not sure what.
This is the option that we selected.
So do we need to select option 1 or option 2?
We're already under option 1. We're already under option 1. These are just the options that are available for school districts, but the board previously has already accepted and adopted option 1. Okay. But we have to list both options.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, this is the first reading. We're going to take a look at it some more and see what option. Now you know that we on option 1. If there's any changes to be.
I just made some notes on both of them. I thought we were discussing which one we should follow, so I already made some notes.
And if I could add, Ms. Galloway, you did ask when we were looking at policies if the board can add something to a policy. And the answer is yes.
Okay.
What the school board provides for us is this is everything that has to be there. Now, if you want to add something above and beyond that, you can.
Gotcha.
Dr. Tiller and members of the board, I'd like to caution you in adding anything that the School Boards Association has sent us, for the simple fact that they've usually looked at all the legal ramifications for it. And also, if we start to make our policies too specific, then you get caught in that catch-22 whenever that, should I say, that particular situation comes along with one child, whereas had you left it a little bit ambiguous, then, you would have been covered. But usually the School Boards Association, they've vetted them, legally. So whenever they send it to us, that's why we usually accept them as they are, because that's what we're actually paying them to do.
And Dr. McLeod, if I could maybe I should have given an example when I said that. I know at one time the teacher to pupil ratio was high in the state, what the state will allow, but the district chose to not have those larger classes like that. So that's just the type of changes I'm talking about, not anything major.
Good.
Gotcha.
All right. Any other discussion?
And Ms. Battle, I should say Dr. Battle, because you know everything. You're very knowledgeable. But with IHAB, and one of the things that said can effectively multiply numbers by the end of the 5th grade. And
Hold on just a second. Let me. IHAB?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'm there.
Okay. So in the second paragraph, in the furtherance of these goals, can effectively multiply numbers by the end of the 5th grade. Do you know if that was based on standards or testing?
If it's talking about multiplication tables, all of that will be based on standards. Anything that we put in here that relates to instruction will be based on standards.
Gotcha. And then IHAF. It was the last bullet. I didn't know if that was supposed to be strong worth or work ethic.
It's probably work.
Okay.
Yep. And see, everything that you see that's in a color other than black.
Yes, ma'am.
That's what the School Boards Association, they either struck through and told it and added. Black is going to be the original.
Okay. I just looked at IHAK, and I know this would be something pertinent to us that we can discuss a little bit later, but since it's talking about character education, and we can discuss this later, I was just curious about if we had selected any curricula for our grades program, and then I just have an idea for a project that we could do to also increase character education.
I would welcome hearing that.
I will meet with you. And that is it for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Have a motion and a second, and we've had discussion. All in favor of accepting the first reading, policy IA through IHAL? Let me know by raising your right hand. First reading is approved.
And
Thank you, Dr. Battle.
I would just like to say we have about 48 more that we need to bring to the board.
How many?
48. Just in this area, in the curriculum area.
Okay, all righty. Okay. And now at the point, we have the superintendent's report. We have Trinity Behavioral Health Drug Prevention Program. Ms. Elizabeth Clark, Director of Community Service. Good afternoon.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We promise to try to be brief. All right, so I am Elizabeth Clark. I am with Trinity Behavior Care, and I am over the prevention department. Along with me is Ebony Manning. She's the prevention specialist at Trinity Behavior Care, and Deputy Young is the prevention specialist with Marlboro County Sheriff's Office. We have the benefit of working together in response to the South Carolina Opioid Response Fund for Marlboro County. So we are the team that focuses on that area in the community. And so with the Opioid Response Fund, we focus on opioids. So this evening, we're going to talk about opioid use in Marlboro County and how it can affect the students in your county. So what are opioids? Opioids are highly addictive prescription drugs used to relieve pain and comes in a variety of forms. And also, each member has a printout of the presentation, a brochure about the adolescent services that Trinity Behavior Care provides as well. Examples of opioids, because some people do not know. Examples of opioids are morphine, oxycodone, hydrocodone, and fentanyl. A lot of times we only think about the things that are going on right now, which is fentanyl. But there are different forms of opioids. Opioids are legal to take. It is a prescription drug that is prescribed from a doctor, but it is highly addictive. And so we ask ourselves, how does the individual use an opioid? Most of the time, individuals, especially high school students or students in general, most of them may be prescribed an opioid because there was a sports or injury related to sports. And oftentimes, as parents or even guardians, we think nothing of it. But an opioid is highly addictive, and oftentimes the doctor will prescribe it for longer than what it needs to be taken for. Okay, it is a medication that is prescribed, is taken, and then it's misused, and then the individual becomes dependent on it. And then oftentimes addiction occurs, and then the individual is now looking for a cheaper or more resourceful substance to use as a result of being addicted to an opioid, sometimes resulting in fatal and non-fatal overdoses. So far this year in Marlboro County, there has been 32 suspected overdoses. Okay. So with this specific efforts that we're doing, ways that we reduce opioid use. So we are doing community outreach by distributing Narcan through the communities, and also by doing take-back events, which means that we will have different events in the county and encourage the community to bring any kind of prescription medication that they're not using so that we can safely dispose of it. And also with evidence-based programs, example are Too Good for Drugs and opioid awareness presentations. implementations that we do within the county and in some of the schools. And so we're going to talk to you a little bit about the Too Good for Drugs program. It is a program that is universal, and it is for ages K through 12. It's a prevention education program designed to mitigate the risk factors and enhance protective factors related to alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs. And opioids is considered another drug. The lessons introduce and build skills for making healthy choices, building positive relationships, developing self-assurance, communicating effectively, and resisting peer pressure and influence. Too Good for Drugs teaches 5 essential characteristic development skills: setting reachable goals, making responsible decisions, bonding in relationships, identifying and managing emotions, and communicating effectively. There is an elementary version, there's a middle school, and a high school version as well. And so this program can be used throughout the school district. And so some of the topics for the elementary level is managing mistakes and disappointment, resisting peer pressure, understanding peer influence, and making healthy choices. With the middle school and the high school version, they learn about social perceptions, character education, and violence prevention. Some of those topics that are discussed with the high school and middle school version talks about media literacy and media influence, resisting peer pressure, understanding addiction, complex social and dating relationships, exploring risk-taking, and healthy and unhealthy risk. Also, it talks about safe use of prescription drugs and over-the-counter drugs, effects of nicotine use in ends, and ends are considered electronic cigarettes or vape devices, effects of alcohol use, effects of marijuana and THC use, and effects of street drugs, including opioids and stimulants. Prevention education is a holistic approach. The school, student, and family all benefit from the program, and it helps make sure that across the board the objectives are being supported and encouraged. The goal is to set the student up for success, and these programs can help other adults in their lives to be a part of it as well. Too Good for Drugs program energizes and inspires teachers, counselors, and other instructors to maximize their effectiveness and create healthy and supportive classroom environments. Too Good for Drugs programs is a small investment with big returns. In return, healthy, happy kids are for generations to come. So we encourage you to allow us to be able to implement Too Good for Drugs within your school district so that young people are aware of the dangers and risks from substance use. Thank you.
Good job. Anybody got any questions?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we have
We got a few questions. Yes, ma'am.
with the program. I was saying the prevention education energize and inspire teachers. Who teaches it?
So we could be the instructors, but we can also provide training that would instruct the teachers to provide the training as well.
Okay. And then with each, is it several lessons?
There are a curriculum of 10 lessons.
And then how often and how long are the lessons?
The lessons are planned to be at least 45-minute increments. There are 10 sessions. The sessions can go once a week, or it can go twice a week, or you can do it 3 times a week. You just have to have a day in between.
And with this curriculum, does our Dr. Battle and the team have to approve it?
Well, of course, we'll review it to make sure that it's in keeping with those, what would be appropriate for the appropriate grade levels, which they've already done a great job doing that. I did meet with Officer Young and the sheriff a week ago regarding this curriculum. And it's one of the, one thing that we would do in the schools is make sure that parents give permission for their son or daughter to take part in the program. It's optional.
You mentioned that there's been 32 overdoses,
Suspected.
and I know we can't say who or what, but I'm just curious about the age group. Do we have any 22 and below that has been in that category? Oh, we do. And you would say some of the other ones would I would say old enough to be parents of some of the kids within the district. Okay. And I was just saying that because, you know, sometimes when a lot of times you hear things and the child, the student,
Yeah.
is going through something at house, they may not be the one that addicted, but become
Correct.
from addicted parents.
Correct.
And that's what I was alluding to. So,
And opioids is not the only drugs that can be overdosed
Right.
on.
okay.
Is there a grant that covers this?
So we were funded through the Opioid Response Fund, which is all of the lawsuits money that went to the different states. It was broken down to counties. So the county administrator had the authority over approving which programs would be in Marlboro County. So this is a program that was authorized by the county administrator.
So there's no cost to us.
No,
Okay.
no, there's no cost.
State-
We actually purchased some student materials for 4th, 6th, and 8th graders already. So we have the capacity to provide the materials for the students.
And would this be something that, and I know we're dealing with students, we would have to get parental consent for this, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Statewide, is there any data on, for us, the number, for as Marlboro County rank, for us overdoses versus the rest of the state?
I could not tell you right this second, but I want to say when I came here like 3 years ago, like Marlboro County was number 3. I serve as Marion Dillon in Marlboro County, and Marlboro County literally, the director of DEOTUS, which is the commission that governs us, was like, you have to do something in Marlboro County because there's a big spike and we don't know what's going on. We get warning emails all the time of what is being done in Marlboro County because the overdoses are increasing. It has gone down some from 2021, but it's still higher than what it needs to be.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you all.
Good job, appreciate it. Okay. Next we had East Side, but due to the weather, the threat to the storm, I don't think nobody from East Side showed up today. They said it will be back next month to give us an update on that. Okay. Marlboro Electric, Marlboro County School District Athletic, Corey Johnson, Athletic Director. Oops.
Good evening.
There you go.
Good evening.
Make sure my clicker's working here. All right, so we're gonna start off by saying that we want a united athletic program here in Marlboro County School District. And so these are the surrounding counties around us. Some of them have 2.5 times as many ADMs as our school. Dillon and Sherrall, in particular, are the closest to us in regards to ADMs. And those schools do not, they have one middle school, and some of them do not have middle school sports. Some of the sports for those schools are C teams or B teams, if you would, 9th grade through 7th grade. So in phase 1, we're making a proposal. In phase 1, which would be next school year, the first thing that we want to do is we want to add a girls flag football team, launching a the first ever girls flag football team here at Marlboro County High School in the fall of 2025. This initiative aims to expand opportunities for female athletes in non-traditional sports. In the Southeast, girls flag football is a really big thing. It's an emerging sport. And I think that it would enhance, me and both Mr. Johnson think that it would enhance girls' opportunities in high school. A unified middle school football team. So combining all 3 middle schools to create one unified middle school football team. This will strengthen the overall competitiveness and foster collaboration across the county. Middle school soccer B team, establishing a middle school soccer B team will allow our youth at the middle school to gain fundamentals of soccer, to enhance our program at the high school. A unified cheer squad. So if we're going to unify the middle school football team, we will unify the cheer squad as well to make one cheer squad for the same reason. And then middle school football conference status for the year of 2025 and 2026, we will play a non-conference schedule focusing on team development and cohesion before seeking conference affiliation. Girls flag football. So a couple weekends ago, me and Principal Johnson went to the Principal AD conference and realized there that it is a humongous sport. It's growing in Southeast United States. We had 92 girls at interest meeting. Carolina Panthers are giving $2,500 to anybody that starts a team. Colleges are starting to offer scholarships for this sport. Florence and Darlington are already participating. Dillon is thinking about it. It will be a 7-week season from September to November. When we got the girls in the interest meeting, we basically tallied them up on a Google response form, and approximately 98% of them said that they would most definitely be interested in playing. Here's our middle school football numbers from this past year. Blenheim had 14 kids finish the season. Wallace had 20 kids finish the season, and McCall had 15 kids finish the season. And in my opinion, anytime that you have 25 or more, I think it's safe to play football. Football is a sport that has 11 people on offense, 11 people on defense, and special teams. I'll give it Blenheim, for example. Some of those kids probably played every rep and didn't come off the field. So for safety precaution reasons, I think that fielding a team with 25, at least 25, would be the safest thing. And none of our middle schools fielded that this year. So our transitions are for football are middle school to JV to varsity. For volleyball, it's JV 7 through 9, and then varsity for cheerleading, middle school, JV, and then varsity, and cross country is one program. Our facility usage, all right, for the fall, we would put both the JV and varsity football team on the turf. The Marlboro County Middle School football team would go behind the away stands on the practice football field. The women's flag football team would use the field beside the high school closest to the railroad track. The band would utilize the utility field, which is behind the baseball field. And the varsity JV volleyball team would use the gym, and the cheerleading team and the cross-country team would use the track. So here's our number of current coaches right now that are paid for each sport. We currently have 8 varsity football coaches, 6 JV football coaches, and 6 middle school football coaches spread out between 3 different middle schools. Our volleyball team has 2 varsity coaches and 1 JV coach. Our cheer squads have 1 coach per team and that is including all middle schools. And our cross-country team has 2 varsity coaches. So this would be ideal after the proposal. After the proposal, we would actually have the same amount of coaches with adding a sport. So we would add women's flag football, which would be 2 coaches. Cross country would stay the same at 2. The cheer squad would be down a coach. We would have 2 for the middle school team, 1 for JV and 1 for varsity. The volleyball would have 2 varsity coaches and 1 JV coach. And our newly formed middle school team would have 5 coaches that could coach 1 team. The JV team would have 6 and the varsity team would have 8. The phase 1 expenses, our phase 1 expenses for a total of 40 players, it would be around $8,500 for middle school football. Jerseys are reversible. The pants are as well. The helmet painting would be the big cost. The one-time helmet painting cost would be the big one. Women's flag would be funded by the Carolina Panthers with a $2,500 grant. And then for miscellaneous cost, we would add $1,000 to that just to be on the safe side. Middle school cheer would be $1,125, and the junior dog soccer team that we are adding would be $2,340. So the estimate budget of this would be around $15,500. So that would be phase 1. Phase 2 would be to unify the baseball and the softball teams. It would also be to unify the girls and boys basketball team for the same exact reasons of football. If we establish a cohesive unit in middle school, because per capita, our middle schools have smaller numbers per capita than all of the schools that we just listed. If we made it one middle school, if we made it one middle school team, it would help the competitiveness and strengthen our team's competitive level as they go up through the ranks. Wrestling in the 2026 to 2027 school year, we will launch a junior dog wrestling program for grades 7th through 9th to build a strong foundation for future talent. Wrestling is one of the biggest sports as far as participation in our school. A lot of kids want to, never have, and so they need the experience. We would also in phase 2 like to add bowling and tennis. We would like to partner with the city of Bennettsville to fix the tennis courts downtown and partner with Laurinburg for the use of the bowling alley. There are professional bowling and tennis players, so we need to utilize that space if it could be fixed. And then conference participation, phase 2 would give us enough time to find the appropriate conference to compete in, and would give us a chance to ensure competitive opportunities for all of our middle school teams. So here's our middle school sport numbers right here. Boys basketball ended the season with 12. Wallace ended the season with 9, and McCall had 13. Girls basketball had 7, 6, and 8. Blenheim, Wallace, and McCall. Our transition, because the men's basketball team does have good participation, we would have a B team and a middle school team. So it would go middle school, B team, JV, and varsity. Girls would be middle school, JV, and then varsity. Wrestling would be junior dogs, that's 9th through 7th, and varsity. Cheer would be middle school, JV, and then varsity, and then strength training would be just one team. So here's the number of our paid coaches during the wintertime. So boys and girls basketball both have 2 varsity assistants, 2 JV assistants, and 6 middle school assistants spread out through 3 schools. With the difference being boys basketball has 1 junior dog because we do have a team. Cheerleading would have one per team throughout the whole district, and wrestling would have 2, and weightlifting has 1. In the proposal, we would go from 29 coaches to 24 paid. Varsity would be girls and boys would both have 3. Basketball, JV would have 2. The boys basketball team would have 2, and middle school would both have 2. Cheerleading, we would have 2 at the middle school. We would have 1 apiece, varsity and JV. The reason why we'd have 2 middle school cheerleading coaches is because if we were to field 30 girls, we think that 1 to 15 would be a great ratio. Wrestling, we would have 2 varsity and then 1 junior dog, and then weight training, we would still have 1 strength coach. So winter facility usage. All of the varsity and JV basketball teams would continue as they are using Marlboro County High School gym. Our middle school would go to Bennettsville Intermediate, both of our middle school teams. And if there was something going on, we have 3 other gyms that we can utilize in the county if we needed to. If there was an academic event or something of that nature going on at Bennettsville Intermediate. And the wrestling team would continue to use the weight room and the wrestling room. Here is our middle school spring sports numbers for this year. Blenheim has 11 kids playing baseball. McCall has 14. Wallace has 13. For softball, Blenheim has no team. McCall has 12, and Wallace has 10. Our transition, baseball and softball would go middle school, JV, and varsity. Now, if we had a mass number of kids attempt to play baseball, then we could, and this is a possibility, to make a junior dog baseball team as well, for the same reason as basketball. Track would be 1 team. Soccer would be a varsity team and a JV team, 7 through 9, and the JV team could be co-ed. And then golf would have 1 team. Here are the number of our spring coaches currently. We've got 3 baseball coaches, 2 JV coaches, and 6 middle school coaches. Softball, we have 2 softball coaches, and that is not because we don't have a paid spot. We just have 2. We have 2 JV coaches, and we have 6 at the middle schools. And obviously they're spread up amongst 3 different schools. Track has 4 coaches, and soccer has 2 apiece. The ideal total would take it from 29 down to 26. So baseball and softball would have 3 varsity and JV coaches and 2 middle school coaches. Track would have 4 coaches. Boys soccer and girls soccer would have 2 on varsity and 1 apiece on the junior dog team. And again, the soccer team, if we don't have enough numbers, can be co-ed. Spring facility usage. So this is where everybody would be kind of housed at in the spring. Baseball would do their normal thing, field cages in the weight room. So, and that's both baseball teams. The middle school baseball team in the spring would utilize the utility field, cages in the weight room. Softball would do the same exact thing. And then track would be on the track. Soccer teams would be on the turf, and the golf team would be at the Marlboro County Country Club. Game sites. So the middle school football, all home middle school football games would happen between 4:30 and 5 o'clock, depending on the opponent that we're playing and how, travel. It would be at McAlpine Stadium, and it would be before the JV game Thursdays for a doubleheader. So ideally, all of our JV games would be first started with a middle school game. I think what makes that cool is the middle school, the JV team can watch the middle school team, and also vice versa. I think that it builds cohesiveness among the programs. And I do think that it would be a great experience for our middle school kids to be able to play football in the big stadium. It would also give middle school football an extra day to practice. Right now we play games on Wednesdays, and if we played away games on Wednesdays, and that's how it would be. But if it was a home week, it would give us an extra day to practice. Middle school basketball and middle school baseball and softball, we would rotate the middle school sites. And this is where the athletic team has to do a good job of communicating to the school in which we're playing at middle school. Ideally, we would have 2 at each site. So ideally, we'd have 2 games at each site. That way, we still keep our small communities. We still keep that showmanship to be able to happen, that event to be able to happen in our small communities. Middle school pickup. So if we're going to house everything at the high school, then we have to have a plan to get them here. So in the fall, winter, and spring, those coaches' stipends that we are not utilizing anymore can be utilized to pay for coaches to pick up kids after school and do a bus route after school. So when school gets out, the athletes will go to their prospective coach or athletic director. Bus will come pick them up. They will get picked up like every other kid and then come to the high school and get housed at the high school. Facility improvements. So in order for this to happen, number one, the football practice field has to get restored. We have to the utility field, which is the field that is behind the baseball field. We would have to make an infield out there so that, and do a partial conversion into a partial baseball field. In the fall, it can still be utilized for the band. We can still mark it off for the band in the fall. But in the spring, it would have to be utilized as a utility field. It was still, for varsity games, you would still be able to park back there. For anybody concerned about parking, you would still be able to park back there. Gym, locker room renovations. So if we're going to have more student athletes at the high school, then we would need to do some renovations to the gym locker rooms. If we are in the winter seasons, the middle school kids could utilize the field house to dress out because there's nobody utilizing the field house at that time. When we're in the fall seasons, the middle school kids can utilize the gym locker rooms because we do not have anybody in there at that time. Side field preparation, so the field that's closest to the railroad tracks beside the high school would have to get prepared as well. And that would be for women's flag football practice only. So what we're talking about in the fall is Wednesday, the McAlpine Stadium is used for our women's flag football team. Thursday, McAlpine Stadium is used for our middle school football team and JV doubleheader if it is at home. And Fridays are made for football. And so we'll be utilizing it for football then. The tennis courts restored, we have to pair with the city of Bennettsville. And I have to set up a meeting with Mr. Simon to see what we could do about getting the tennis courts restored. So we'll have more opportunity for our student athletes. Currently, our middle school sports include football, baseball, basketball, and softball. And yes, if a kid wanted to play volleyball, they could come up here and try to play volleyball. But what if that kid didn't have a ride, right? This plan covers all of that. This plan will introduce additional sports to our middle schools: cross country, volleyball, wrestling, weightlifting, soccer, golf, bowling, tennis, and track and field. These new opportunities will allow students to showcase their talents and strengthen our varsity teams here at Marlboro County High School in the future. Our expenses for phase 2, boys and girls basketball will be, it will be a reversible jersey. It will be a little bit under $1,900. Softball, again, reversible jersey will be $862.50. Baseball, Reversible jersey again will be $742.50, and the wrestling singlets will be $58 a piece, which is $1,160. So phase 2 total expenses, not including the facility changes, would be $4,655. In conclusion, I believe this initiative will strengthen the competition and give our kids more opportunities to be a part of a team, which will in turn enhance their experience in our district here in Marlboro County. Thank you.
Job. Any questions?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Johnson. Have it been considered to partner with St. Andrews to possibly do a swimming team?
That would be a great idea.
Okay.
I think that's a great initiative.
I had a question. The utility field that you're talking about using behind the baseball field, is that not where they park for baseball?
They do park there for baseball, but if we're using it for practice, utilizing it for practice.
Mm-hmm.
So we would have to mark off where we make the field at,
Mm-hmm.
and then they could still park back there because it would still be driving on the grass. Does that make sense?
Right.
It would not be an issue. Game times for JV games and varsity games would not get in the way of practicing.
And you don't think them driving on it's going to mess it up for them to practice? And
I don't think that them driving on it would mess it up for them to practice, no ma'am. Because they would not be driving on the actual field. They would just be driving on the grass. It would be the outfield.
okay.
And for the coaches, what kind of training, professional development, coaching clinics do they receive?
That's a great question. So on May 28th, we have a district-wide coaches PDP that they would have to come to, and it would entail everything that they would need to be a coach. So we would do a PDP, and the state already regulates professional development and regulates certain classes that you have to do in order to coach.
Okay.
CPR certification will be went over that day. Leadership training will be went over that day. All the things that you need to be a coach. Our student code of conduct book will be gone over that day. Our coaches code of conduct book will be gone over that day. Everything that they need to know on May 28th to be a coach for the following year, they will know. And that's including volunteers.
Okay. Are there any social emotional learning included with the training?
No, ma'am, but we do have a 20-minute piece on building relationships and what sports mean to a lot of people in Marlboro County. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
Has anyone spoke with anyone in the community about the merge? I know I could speak for McCall. For them to lose the Red Devils per se, some won't be happy, that's for sure. I'm not saying it won't benefit students down the road. I feel we should at least consult with, I believe a lot of parents that goes to the ball games in McCall, I'm not saying they would have the availability to come here or if they would come here. And looking at the students, if you got one football team and you got 50 players versus like McCall had 14, or they can still get plenty of playing time.
So what we're trying to do here at Marlboro County School District is be a united athletic program, and us competing in amongst each other and having a county championship, I don't believe that strengthens the competition level in which they're going to face when they get to high school. When they get to high school, there's a lot of things that they see from other districts that they would get a chance to see in middle school. The overall competitiveness would get better. And I believe that if they are going to transition to the high school anyways, that should not be a problem in the 7th grade.
And if I could just add, I think that Coach Johnson forgot to add that we do plan to hold community forums to discuss and share this initiative and why. And so that is in the works as well. And the good thing about it is we're just trying to phase it in over time. It's not like we plan to look at all the sports at once.
I think the biggest thing is, especially with middle school football, up in Wallace, we'd be lucky to get 13 players. 2 or 3 get hurt. We may have to cancel half the season. McCall had about 14, 15, so not having enough kids to even have a full practice. And I did hear you say the transportation will be provided for those kids that wanted to play on those teams to get here, so that problem will be eliminated. The thing that I was thinking about, that you would lose in the community, but you can gain it in another way, because we partner with the county, and we can turn all these gyms that's going to come open, turn them over to the recreation department, and they will have a place in Wallace to play recreation sports in Wallace. So you still have activity in Wallace, you still have gym in Clio, you still got a gym in McCall. So our younger recreational kids will have a gym, don't have to compete with the middle school or somebody running them out, and because our other kids in the middle school will be playing here at the high school in all the sports. So we could benefit from it, because that will elevate the recreational program and unify the middle school and JV program. I like the idea.
And I also think that when you bring people together and they're all playing at the same on the same facility, that the varsity coach gets to build a relationship with that kid in the 7th grade. The varsity coach also gets to coach and do professional development with the other coaches. Everybody running the same system, it would benefit. It would benefit.
I got a few other questions related to photos that are taken of players and teams. Is it up to the individual coach to schedule that, or we have someone who works with your team who does that?
Can you say the question again?
So when I look at basketball, football, the other teams, sports, who takes those photos? Is it up to the coach to hire someone, or do you have someone on your team who does the individual photos?
I do. We do have somebody on the team that does individual photos. Now, I'm not sure what you're talking about. Are you talking about like team photos?
Yes, team photos, if they take individual photos. What I'm getting at is I was looking at the banners that seniors get, and normally the basketball and the football teams get it, but no other sports get them. And so I was questioning who pays for it, and then if the district pays for it, how is it that we can make sure all our kids, including our band members, also get them as well?
So we just did a fundraiser in the spring, which was for spring athletics. I do not control band, which was for spring athletics. In all spring sports, their reward for doing the fundraiser was to get banners. So everybody should get banners. Now, if they went ahead and bought theirs early, we will reimburse them for that. But everybody in the spring will get banners. Yes, ma'am. And everybody gets scheduled pictures at the high school. Yes, ma'am.
For sports?
For sports, yes,
Okay.
ma'am. Because I don't control band, ma'am. I control athletics.
Well, no, I just noticed with the wrestling, my nephew wrestles, and so he also did cross country, and there were no photos taken for cross country, but also even with wrestling, it was another company. So that's why I was asking, does the coach hire someone, or should they come to you to hire someone?
They should come to me, and our answer to that, as I became the athletic director in the middle of the fall season, but our answer to that was to do a fundraiser to where everybody, all seniors, not all kids, but all seniors could get a banner in the spring, and we did. Yes, ma'am.
So for those who are not just in the spring, but they're winter now, is there money that you know that is available for our seniors who did cross country or any other sport that may have not been in the spring, who did not receive a banner? Is it possible to schedule a time to honor those kids?
That's fine.
I'm just looking at equity amongst all of our kids.
Yes, ma'am. 100%. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yep.
Coach Johnson,
Yes, sir.
would you do me a favor? And of all your coaches, would you check and see how many of them actually work for the district and get that back to Dr. Tiller, and she'll distribute it to us? In other words, I want a listing of all that work for the district and all that don't. Just the numbers, not names per se. just numbers.
Yeah, that's a good one, Dr. Clark. And
Yes, sir.
include like assistant teachers, bus drivers, whatever they is, as long as if they work for the district that coaching our children. Not, yeah, that's a good one.
And you're looking for paid or all period?
You're not worried about work. Yeah, they're paid. We're not
Yeah,
worried
all.
about what they make. We just want
If they're paid by the district.
paid by the district.
Okay.
Yeah. But it looks like a huge savings here. I see here, and it's not expensive. You're gonna save money by having less coaches, by combining them like that, in the sports that you're doing, not really expensive at all. So, think it's a good plan. Good plan.
Coach Johnson, I have basically the same concern that Mr. Flowers has. Will there be a provision whereas, say you have these combined teams, will any kid that wants to participate be allowed to participate even if you end up with, say, 40 or 50 players on the team?
What sport are we regarding to?
Say football. Say if you end up with 50 kids, in other words, I think it's about 10, 15 from each one. So, okay, you'd probably end up with, say, 45 kids. Well, you got one other kid, he wants to participate, but coach gonna cut so many, because my thing is that a kid in high school should be allowed to participate in any sport, whether he's good at it, whether he's bad at it, or, even if he rides the bench the whole time, he still has the opportunity to practice and participate.
Yes, sir.
Because my thing is, I could care less about athletics. Basically, I'm trying to get kids an education so that they can make a decent living whenever they leave here. And they basically have to leave because it's not a whole lot for them to come back to. In other words, they come back to teach, they're in good shape. If they drive truck, they're in good shape. Anything else, it's a toss-up. So, but the main thing that I'm concerned about is that, if he wants to participate, that you don't have a team where, okay, well, I've got to cut so many kids, to cut this team down. In other words, I have no problem with, you carrying three bus loads of football players, wherever you go.
That's right.
Yeah, we want to give every kid an opportunity. And as I stated before with the basketball team, if we needed to make a junior dog team, we would.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Coach. Good job.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Moving on for approval or something. Just update. Okay. I'd like the board would like to approve Coach Johnson's first stage on this update. We'll approve the first stage, and he can move and come back to us when we get to the second stage on that.
Mr. Chair,
Just for the record, yes, sir.
I move that the board authorize the AD to move into phase 1
Absolutely.
with the restructuring of athletics.
A motion to approve stage 1 with the athletic for the restructuring plan.
I second it. I second it.
Okay, we've had discussion. All in favor, let me know by raising the right hand. Motion is carried. Okay, next we have Northeastern Technical College update. Dr. Battle.
It says Northeastern Technical College update, but what it really is to kind of give you an introduction, because Northeastern Technical College will be coming before the board to present their own proposal and what they're working on for the Marlboro campus in partnership with Marlboro County School District. So I wanted to just give you a little bit of information that you would have at your leisure to take the time to read. I'm going to go over a couple of them tonight, but then you can look at it in more detail. And then Northeastern Technical College will bring their whole proposal before the board. Excuse me. The first thing that I gave you is just the introduction to NETC partnership for early college, which is going to be a new phase, and then the continuation of dual credit, dual enrollment agreement at the Marlboro campus. The first thing I gave you on this sheet was just the difference or definition of dual credit and dual enrollment. Sometimes these two terms are used interchangeably, and there's just a slight nuance, a slight difference between the two. So dual credit courses are college-level courses that high school students take, and upon successful completion, they earn both high school and college credit. So it goes on the high school transcript and it goes on the college transcript. Dual enrollment programs allow students to take college courses while still enrolled in high school, earning credit for college. These courses are only on the college transcript. They are not on the high school transcript. So that is the subtle difference between the two.
Good. All right.
So Northeastern Technical College's main focus with Marlboro County School District, it's okay, Chris, is to really focus on our 9th grade and 10th grade in the early college, because for the dual enrollment and most of our dual credit courses, these are our 10th and 11th grade students. So their focus is on tiered or stackable credentials, along with our career and technical education department. So this is the second thing that I've given you. And this is straight from the State Department. So the tiered credential system, the South Carolina tiered credential system, is a structured framework that classifies industry recognized credentials based on their alignment with workforce priorities, employer demand, and career progression opportunities. It helps students, educators, and employers understand the value of different credentials in preparing individuals for high demand, high wage careers. The system is organized into 3 tiers based on the economic impact, job market relevance, and career advancement potential of each credential. So the next page that you have is the tier descriptions. And these tier descriptions, you have tier 1, which is introductory, tier 2, which is intermediate, and tier 3, which is career ready. So for introductory, it's going to be foundational skills, validates basic competencies for further education or training, regionally recognized, accepted by local industries, but not a statewide hiring requirement. An early career pathway earned in the first stages of a CTE program leading to higher level credentials. So it's just what it says, is introductory. Tier 2 is intermediate, which is the next level. It's industry aligned, valued by employers, but not always required for hiring. It supports career pathways, provides an employment advantage and job readiness, enhances workforce participation, increases employability, but additional training may be needed for advancement. And then tier 3, the career ready, high demand careers. It's required for employment in priority, high wage occupations. There are clear economic benefits. It leads to significant wage gains, promotions, or job retention. Career advancement, recognized entry point into further education, training, and certifications. So we want to make sure that our students progress, that they don't stop at tier 1 or tier 2, but they continue to stack those credentials so that they are career ready, and when they go into the workforce, they are demanding those high salaries. And then the last one just talks about why transition to a tiered system, and I'm not going to read that one. It's just the State Department's reason for transitioning to a tiered system. So the Marlboro NETC campus is for Marlboro County high school students. And our goal, along with NETC, is to utilize that facility so that our students have all the advantages that they need in order to become certified and to have these stackable credentials. As I said, NETC will be here at a board meeting soon so that they can go over their whole proposal with the board. And this is just introductory, kind of giving you a little bit of background about what the stackable credentials are so that when you hear it from them, you'll be familiar with it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you,
Bell.
Ms. Bell.
Well, I do have a question. We are preparing this for the 25-26 school year?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
good. And I know when the end of the year with our testing, our career ready, this would help us with that.
That is correct. And I don't want to steal their thunder.
Okay.
But what we're working on together, the way it's set up now, our students take our CTE courses at the college level at NETC, but when it comes to our state report card, they're not considered college ready. They're just considered career ready. Okay. But some of the courses, like with the nursing, they have to pass those very difficult tests in order to become certified and to earn their licensing. So they're kind of setting a precedent where we want these to be not only career ready courses, but college and career ready, because they're taking college courses and passing them.
And let me ask you something. Is that something that State Department approved?
This is something that we're working to get approved.
Okay. And reason
so
why
it's not just career ready, that is college and career ready. We would be setting a precedent.
Okay. And reason why I asked you too, we have a day at the Capitol coming up. And, things like that is what I believe we need to push in those lawmakers' ear to try to help expedite that. So.
I agree.
That's all right.
Secretary, you want to notate that right down so
I got it.
we'll be there Wednesday. Trying to push forward.
Okay. Thank you.
Good thing. Thanks for bringing us, Tom. All right. Financial reports. As of March 31st, 2025. Mr. Benjamin.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Coachman, Dr. Tiller, ladies and gentlemen of the board. I have provided you the information, the financial report. Mr. Toms, thank you for pointing it out. This is actually a change that I actually accidentally done first tonight. I didn't mean to do this. The way the county, they actually submit us the journal entries for the funds that we receive, and we post that information. They're generally a month behind, and they normally send that information to us around the 12th. Sometimes it's the 15th. So generally, it depends on when our board meeting is established. The information is not up to date as it relates to our information that we have from the county. So instead of giving you March's report, I actually gave you February, because we don't actually have March's information yet, because normally we don't get that until around the 11th or the 12th of April. So this is the updated information that we have for our revenue and expenditure report. So if you have any questions, please, I'll be so kind to answer them for you.
Still in the black, green?
Yes, sir. We're still progressing, and we're moving towards the end of the school year, so we're moving along.
All right. Good standing. Any questions? No financing? Okay. We have a next budget meeting. Should be updated, call up on everything.
Thank you.
All right. Captain McLeod.
Yes, sir.
What's going on?
Time to go home.
We need a motion.
I move that we adjourn our meeting.
We have a motion to have a second.
Second.
Have a second. Two ladies said, let's go to the house. Any other discussion? None other, all in favor, let them know, raise your right hand. This meeting is adjourned.